Hey, thanks so much for joining us today in our interview with Alex Hormozi. If you guys don't know who Alex Hormozi is, he's the CEO of Gym Launch. Gym Launch is a company that helps small gyms scale and grow their business, and they specifically emphasize in sales and marketing. What's crazy about Gym Launch is the past couple of years, they've scaled their own business to $50 million. That's insane. So in today's interview, we talked to Alex about business growth. We talked to him about keeping business simple and what do you do when you hit walls in your business. So make sure to stay tuned for this interview with Alex, and also make sure to subscribe. And also every single week we're dropping a bunch of value in interviews with experts like this from all around the world, and especially in fitness, so that you guys can become better and more rounded, wealthy fitness pros. So make sure to stay tuned, subscribe, and then enjoy the interview.
This is Alex Hormozi, and you are listening to the Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast.
Yeah. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode on the Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast. We are here with Alex Hormozi. How you doing today?
I'm rocking. I'm having a great day.
Man, we're in your home. We're in the studio right now?
Yeah,
okay.
In the studio.
Beautiful home, man. This is awesome. And we got to check out your gym, all that. So, I mean, thank you for having us here.
No, we're
Thank you.
happy to have you. You guys have really good vibes just off walking the door, so I was like, this should be fun.
Thank you. Yeah, they usually say it's the big eyebrows.
Yeah.
He's got the stash, we got the brows.
Yeah, it's a sign of masculinity. It's animal attraction, it works. It's
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm glad too that we heard you speak at Mike's event. Which was it?
GSD-Con?
Yeah, GSD-Con. So
yeah.
awesome presentation. And we're like, man, who is this guy? Like, he's just dropping fire up there. And we're like, okay, let's go look him up. We're like, got his book. Your book was amazing. So, I mean, here we are, man. So it's really awesome.
Oh, super cool. I didn't know that's where you guys actually
yeah,
Oh, that's huge. That's
so
cool.
we're like, Mike, dude, you gotta hook us up with Alex.
Oh, yeah. Mike's awesome. He's really
he
nice
is.
guy.
Yeah. So let's get into it. So we'd like to kick off the show with what's called rapid dynamic questions, just to kind of get to know you a little bit more. So you ready for that?
Yeah.
Let's do it, man. So if you could have a billboard anywhere in the world, what would you want that to say and why?
Who am I trying to reach and what's the objective?
It can be anything. Yeah. I know it's pretty broad, but...
Yeah. For the longest time, if it was fitness related, I would want it to say lift weights, eat less.
Okay.
So if that's for general population, if that was the objective, it's just like that's my mass media campaign. It's like to counter everything, just like lift weights, eat less.
Okay.
So.
I like it. And currently, right now, how are you consuming content? Are you more of like an audio guy, reading books, or more kind of like watching videos?
I'm a Kindle guy.
Kindle guy.
So
okay.
yeah, books. Interesting wrinkle on that. A lot of people read a lot of books. I read a few books a lot of times, and so I'm a big believer in just like until I can make a full presentation teaching the concepts of the book, then I don't move on from the book. And so typically, like for consuming information, I binge on a very particular topic for a skill that I'm trying to acquire, and I keep going through the same best books that I can find. So typically, I'll talk to experts first, ask for their top 2 books that they like guaranteed would never do, talk to a few of them, and then once I get like kind of a list of like hopefully there's a couple crossovers, and then I'll focus on those, reread those, and then I can make a presentation that I like doing that for myself, but also so I can teach the team.
Right.
And so that's kind of my process for learning information.
Gotcha. Cool. What's like 1 to 2 books you would recommend? Like go-to books?
It's about for whom, about what?
Okay.
No, like if we're talking like
let's say for a fitness professional.
Fitness professional.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Dan Kennedy's
yeah.
Dan Kennedy was the first author that I just tore through. I would say that the foundation of all the stuff we did with the business was Dan Kennedy. So I have consumed every single piece that he has, almost all of them multiple times.
Yeah.
And so his I call them free books, but his $10 $15 books, they're free basically. The No BS was a direct response because they're like 2 sentences long titles. Direct response marketing for non-direct response marketers, I think, is his like flagship first book. And then for people who already are small business owners, his Ruthless Time Management is really, really good.
Oh yeah.
That one helped me a ton with my life. And then if you're not sure on like how to sell, his How to Sell in like the New Economy is a really great foundational piece for like selling.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. So staying on the topic of Fit Pros, what's maybe 1 or 2 skills that are just like literally invaluable that you would recommend for them after all the experience you've had?
They just need to learn how to generate leads on demand. It doesn't even have to be through paid advertising, but they have to have a reliable way of generating leads. So that could be, I know that every day I do 25 cold reach outs to people who commented and liked my content or whatever it is, and they have to have a script that they know that with 25 reach outs they're going to get three warm-up calls and 1 sale. You know what I mean? Whatever that is. And so if they know what that, they have to have a consistent way of generating clients, and that's an unpaid way. You're paying with time. The other way is you're paying with money, so you can pay for media. But either way, they have to have a reliable way of knowing how to acquire customers.
Gotcha.
I agree.
What's one thing that you're really bad
at? Most things. So it'd be easier to be like, what are the few things you're good at? Gosh, I'm horrible with most detail-oriented things, except for like details around like process and product. But when it comes to like remembering things, like, hey, can you do this for me tomorrow? Like, no chance. Like, there's, I really want to, and it will be gone from my head. Yeah. So all housework, chore things, anything that's handy, like physically handy, I'm not physically handy at all. So none of those skills are there at all. So Layla's very happy about that. I'm a useless husband in most ways. That's probably like my biggest deficit.
We can relate with you on that.
Yeah, I don't have to laugh. It's like we're the same way. No handyman skills at all. It's like whatever. It is what it is. Finish the sentence. The fitness industry needs more of.
More of or just more? I'll say more.
More.
Okay, cool. More of a long-term perspective for client outcomes. So, personal trainers, gym owners, etc. I think that everyone gets really caught in the minutia of like how, like you guys did the competitive stuff, like as did I. We lived in that world for a long time, and so the details are not lost on us. But if as fitness professionals take a longer term perspective on what a client like for ideal outcomes, like if you can get someone to walk every day for 10 minutes, like actually do that for the rest of their life, like you've added 10, 15 years to their life. Right. And so I think making it a much lower threshold for what you're expecting someone to do, and making sure that it's something that they can do forever, truly, and then setting those expectations properly for the individual, so that when they're coming into your programs and whatnot, you're like, sure, like I can have you eat, chicken and tilapia and asparagus for the next 6 weeks and have you do 2 hours a day of cardio and lift weights, but you're gonna gain the weight back anyways, so what's the point of being in shape for 6 months of your 80-year life? And you do that 4 times, right? Like, what's the point? And so if you can kind of break down that perspective and get them to think longer term in like the fewer habits, because most fitness people don't even do the things that they tell their clients to do. Right? Most of us probably just like, I know I gotta get my protein in, and I should probably lift weights-ish. Right? And that's about it. And so it's like, if we took that perspective with our clients, then I think that way fewer people would fall off, people would have way longer outcomes, and the fitness professional would have higher lifetime values, people would appreciate it more, and then ultimately they would learn to be able to have that as a lifestyle, which is the whole goal anyways.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. What's your go-to tip to staying focused?
Do fewer things.
Okay.
I think most people think that like to stay focused, they have to like focus harder, but usually you have to focus harder by doing fewer things, and focus happens on its own. Like if you had nothing to do but one thing, it's very easy to focus. Okay. So learning to say no.
What do you fear the most right now?
What do I fear the most? I mean, huge, like industry-wise?
Anything. Yeah, it could be personal, it could be industry-wise, business-wise.
Man, I don't
something that keeps you awake at night.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of like, because you'd be like, okay, well, I think the economy's going to crash, but like I'm not really afraid of that. I expect that, and so it's like, can I prepare for it? Yes. And is that going to affect us? Not really. Like, we just have to take X, Y, and Z steps beforehand. I don't really have anything that I'm like super afraid of. I think can I answer that with like a statement of why not? Maybe?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm a big believer in knowing what your floor is. And so, like your plan B. So when I opened my first gym, I was like, if this fails, what would I do? And so I knew that I would strip and drive Uber every day, and that's what I would do. So I knew that I could drive Uber probably 10 to 12 hours a day, and then I would strip between like 10 and 2, right? And I could do that every day and probably make like $200,000 a year and get right back on my feet in a year. And so that was like my plan B if you have zero skills besides being like somewhat in shape, right? And so that was like my floor. And so as like we've acquired more skills over time, I knew that once I learned how to sell, I knew I could sell in a car dealership and make $250,000 a year just by being really good at sales. And then like now I think that our floor is probably $3-4 million a year, given the skill sets that we have and just the connections that we have. Like I don't think we'll ever go below that as like the bottom of what could happen. And so I think the not having fear is knowing what you would actually do if the worst were to happen. And then there's then there's really no reason to not go for it. Because
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, the worst scenario is that. I'm cool with that. Awesome. You know.
I love that, man. That was a better answer than like giving me what.
Okay.
No, I appreciate that. That's good. If there was like another profession you could do or something you've always wanted to do, what would that be?
Oh. I wouldn't say it was a different profession. I still want to be in business for sure, but I would I just want to do a different type of business. You know, we've had brick and mortar service businesses, we have products-based business, we have an information business, and we're starting our software business now, like as we speak. And so, just being able to have different types of actual things themselves that we're monetizing is really cool for me. So that's what I would do in another life, is I would do more of kind of what we're doing.
Gotcha.
I would live like 6 lives and try and try it all.
All right, Alex, so you're officially off the hot seat with the
Okay.
dynamic questions, but I want to go back to when you left Baltimore.
Yep.
And you packed up your bags and you just finished undergraduate school. So what was it like, that pivotal moment where you were just like, you were doing some consulting, you said, right, in your book, and then you were just like, dude, I just can't keep doing this. Like, what was like that aha moment, or just like that pivotal moment where it's like, I have to pack up and go follow like my dreams and my dream?
Yeah, so I think some people, I think there's 2 types of moments. You have a rock bottom moment or a rock top moment. And so usually it's like a false top. You're all of a sudden you get there and you're like, this isn't really worth it. And so I had done everything that I was supposed to do. I did really well in school. I did really well, like I was, and I bought a really nice condo in Baltimore in high rise, and like I overlooked the city, and I was like 22 years old, and I'd done everything that I was supposed to do. And I was sitting out there on like the balcony, and I was like, this is really it. Like, I really don't enjoy my life. Like, this is a cool view and I see it at night, and that's about it. And I really don't, like, I didn't really, like, when you start thinking as you're driving, like if I just drove in the other lane and like no one would know and it would just be written off as an accident, like when you start thinking that all the time, it's like, what am I doing here? What is the point of this? And so after that, it was like, kind of like, what's the alternative, right? The fear was like that maybe the biggest thing I fear is getting back to a mental state like that.
Yeah.
But once I was in those shoes, it's like, well, the alternative is that I don't exist anymore. And so it's like, well, if that's the alternative, then like nothing else that I do kind of matters. And so it's okay to take a bigger risk and jump, because like my current state, like, was it Tony Robbins says, like, change happens when the pain of staying the same is worse than the pain of change. And so like the pain of staying the same was really high. And so I was like, all right, well, at least if I open a gym, like I was making good money as a consultant. And so I was like, at least I'll be happy, right? I'm doing what I like doing.
Yeah.
Now, very quickly, I started learning the business game, and I got really into it more than I liked the fitness side.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like the thought process that got me into it, was like, at least I'll like it and I'll do what I enjoy every day.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah, and you going up to like 22 years old and like, graduating, getting a condo, making good money. I mean, did your parents push you down that route?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say forcefully. You know what I mean? I just think that there are always unspoken expectations of what you're supposed to do, and this is no fault of theirs. Just like, I wanted to make my parents proud, and so I did those things. But ultimately, like, I think almost everyone's parents just want them to be happy, and so my parents were not for this, when I made the jump, but I don't think I gave them full context to why I was making the decision. I didn't tell them the other part. But it was 100% my decision. But yeah, there was definitely some outside pressures that I either believed were there or were not. They may not have even expected that at all, but I perceived them to be there.
Gotcha. And also, too, in your book, you mentioned that you met your wife, Layla, at your absolute worst. And now you guys are, married. You guys are building an empire, doing amazing things. So, I mean, like, how was that going through that, at your absolute worst?
It's a better question for her. For me, it was just horrible, but she met me at my absolute worst, and I was basically like, I'm not emotionally available right now. And so we kind of like, that's what we kind of started dating, but started working at the same time together. And she was just thankfully really patient with me, just kind of like dealing with a lot of the demons that I had at that time, and basically also unwinding a lot of some of the poor decisions that I had made up to that point in terms of partnerships and side hustles and just all these things that I was like committed to that just really didn't make sense for me. And I was exposed financially on a lot of things, risk-wise, and just a lot of just bad decisions that I had. And it kind of all, it was like, there's a lot of culminations, but the beginning of the kind of like the unraveling was when I got in a head-on collision in a DUI. And I walked away from it. And so at the time I had a coach, and he was like, your stress will kill you. And so it kind of became real for me, and I'm very fortunate that I'm still, here. And so that's when I was like, okay, this is going to kill me. Like my lifestyle, my work-life stress is going to actually kill me. And so that was when I became totally okay. It was kind of like the same as before. It's like when it became life and death, I was like, all right, so I'm going to get rid of all these things. And so I shut down a dentist marketing agency, a chiropractor marketing agency. I had 6 gyms, and I sold all of them within 90 days. I had 2 different partners that I had to buy. It was just like a huge mess. And so I got out of all those, and the only thing that I focused on was Gym Launch. And she was like, you're really good at this. We make a ton of money doing this. Why don't you just do this, right? The focus, just being able to say no. And so once that happened, there was still a tremendous amount of horrible stuff that happened from there, but that was kind of like the beginning of the beginning of the upswing, I would say. It still sucked a lot for the next like 6 months, but like it was a pretty, like, she was with me during like the absolute worst. And so honestly, after we got through that and like Gym Launch as it currently is kind of took off, I was kind of like, well, you've seen it all. You know what I mean? You've seen me almost go bankrupt. You've seen someone drain the accounts and take, so like I sold the gyms and I put all the money into this new thing. The partner there took all the money, and then so like all of the time that I'd spent building my gyms, all that money disappeared in an instant. And so like all of the pain and suffering I had gone through doing that was gone. I had nothing to show for it except for the skills that I had. And so that's why like now like all I think about is skills. And when I talk to people who are like newer, it's like it's just the skills. Like your first business, your second business, your 5th business, whatever it is, as you're kind of learning the ropes, is only there to give you the scars and get you tougher for the thing that you're going to do next. It's not like, it's probably not going to be your legacy. And like I think there was a mentor who was like, if you're not embarrassed of the first product you're selling, like you probably waited too long. And I think, and it's not that you should be embarrassed when you put it out, it's just that you're probably embarrassed about it now.
Right. And during like that moment, I remember too, you wrote in your book that you feared just really like your dad's judgment if like you like, you know, failing or something like that. Like why did you fear that so much from your dad?
I think it's the Middle Eastern background, so I'm Middle Eastern, and so I was the only son, the only child, eldest son, like, and I also didn't really grow up with a mom that was completely present, and so it was literally just him and me. And so I knew that my dad put all of his pride and joy into me. And so I just, you know, we are in a really good place now, but I was not in a very good place for a long time with my dad. And so let me riff on that for a second, because there might be, for someone who's listening, me being able to stop being angry at my dad as I became an older adult came to a new definition of success that I got from John Wooden. And so his definition of success is 100% not outcome-based, and it's 100% effort-based, which is like you are successful if you know that you've exhausted every amount of effort you possibly could in preparation for the event. Whether or not you win or lose is irrelevant. You are successful if you know in your heart that you tried your absolute best. And in doing that, you tend to win. But the success, the win is a byproduct of the effort. I know that sounds simple, but me rereading that book was like a huge breakthrough for me. And then I started defining my parents' success in terms of effort. And so despite the fact that they may have had demons that they had, you know, dealing with on their own, do I think that they did not try their absolute hardest given the cards that they were dealt to raise me? And I think the answer is yes. And so in saying that, it shifted my viewpoint of my parents and their deficits from, I can't believe you said these things, and like I had all these beliefs that you gave me, and like all this stuff, this kind of like negative stuff, and in turn was like, I'm responsible for me, which I've always believed that, but I don't need to harbor resentment towards you because I think you tried your absolute best. And so for that, I'm always thankful. And so in shifting that, basically all of my anger just like released. So hopefully that for anybody who was listening was cool. But in terms of like fearing my dad's judgment, it's just, you know, I think everyone has people that they want to make proud. And so for me, it was my dad. I mean, some people might be a grandfather, somebody might not even be family related. Just for me, it was that. And so I just wanted to, I also just didn't like, I don't like being told that I can't do things, and so being told that early on, I didn't want to be wrong. I didn't want him to be right in that instance.
And thanks for sharing that, because we can relate too, because our father, he passed away when we were 18. He was in a car accident, so I mean, we were just always looking up to him. He was just like our role model, everything towards like we wanted to make him proud. It was always about him. He wanted us to go get an education, get the degree, all that stuff. So we did that just to make him happy. You know, so I can definitely relate with that.
And I don't know if it was your father foreign. Okay. So mine was too, and he came here with no money, and he, because of his education, was able to, you know, build a practice for himself and all that stuff, but he had no money, he had nothing besides education. And so for me to abandon the kind of trodden path for him was like, what are you doing?
Right,
you know
right.
what I mean? And I understand 100% now where that was coming from. It was coming from a place of love, but at that time, I didn't want to be wrong.
Yeah, gotcha. Let's shift gears here and talk about Gym Launch. So, man, you guys have taken it from 0 to 50 million in about 24 months?
20 months.
Yeah. Okay. So, take me through that. Like, how'd you do that?
By not making a lot of content. So,
that's a secret.
Yeah, the secret is not making content. Honestly, it was, so we installed the same systems that I used to scale the gyms really quickly. We just used, like, all the frameworks that we used at the gyms are the same frameworks we used here. It's just a superior opportunity vehicle, and the ticket was higher. But in terms of, like, the total amount of people I would sell per month into my gym is about the same amount of people that I sell per month into Gym Launch. It's just the tickets are higher, and there's more implementation, et cetera. But, like, the fundamentals are the same. We make more money in the acquisition than it costs us to acquire the customer. So we were profitable in the acquisition. And so when I started this 3 years ago, we were getting 100-to-1 return on our ad spend up front. Pretty crazy, right? So we couldn't not make money. And so in doing that, we just 100% doubled down on that opportunity, while the vein for that arbitrage was there. And so, I remember the day we switched from doing like us flying out to gyms and doing the turnarounds to basically showing how we did the turnarounds, how we would fill gyms up, how we changed the pricing, how we changed the fulfillment, all the things that we did to streamline the gyms and make them more profitable. Like the first month we did like 200, I think we did 180,000 the first month, and the second month we did like 300, and the third month we did 470, and the next month we did 780, and like it just scaled. Mm-hmm. And I think part of that's also just because like I'm very much like a pedal in the metal type person. Thankfully Layla is very supportive, and she's definitely the brake and make sure that like we don't run off the rails. But the reason it was honestly able to scale that fast is because we had so much word of mouth. That I'm sure that's why we got 100-to-1 on, because like I probably didn't count the fact that 3/4 of our clients weren't coming from paid ads. But actually it was funny, at one of our events I actually had everyone raise their hand. I was like, who here came because someone told you about Gym Launch? And it was like 80% of the room had their hands raised, and I was like, so maybe my paid ads don't do anything. I have no idea. But anyways, the thing is that when we started, like the average gym was getting like 25-to-1, sometimes 50-to-1 returns on their ad spend. So it was a legitimate get rich quick scheme for poor people. And it actually worked. And so like we had 85% of the people who were coming through our program making, 20 grand the first week. Nice. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like right now, because obviously, ad costs, et cetera, have gone up over time. Like right now I can tell you our averages in the first, 6 weeks, the average gym makes $16,000 working with us. Now our program is 16 for 16 weeks, so they've already recouped their costs in their first 6 weeks working with us. But the reason that it exploded was because honestly, so many people made a ton of money.
Yeah.
And that was really it. I wish there was like a bigger secret. It was just like we had a really good system, and part of the reason it worked so well is because we flew out to 33 gyms. In 18 months and manually did it ourselves. So we tested every market, we tested the process. Like it was a very straightforward system. The training that I used was the sales training that I used to train my sales team. So it wasn't like, look at all this sales material I have. It was like, this is exactly what I used to train my sales team. Mm-hmm. It's 45 minutes long. If you watch at the beginning and go to the end, it means on the other side of that, if someone walks in the door, you'll get money from them. Because I had to have it work because my sales team used this training, right? And the fulfillment section was how I had to train the gyms to do the fulfillment for when we would sell for them. So it had to work, right? Otherwise I would get chargebacks and refunds, all that kind of stuff. And so like the fulfillment had to be dialed in and short and sweet and simple so they'd actually consume it, right? And so like all of these things, I kind of built the system without knowing that I had built it. So I didn't go into it like, let me make an info product. I was actually trying to get out of the gym business because when we were doing these launches, we're like, you know what? Maybe we just should sell straight to consumer, because then Layla could be the face of the brand. So we actually made this whole thing, and it actually started working. So the impetus for us starting Gym Launch was actually selling my secrets of how I was launching gyms, and then it just blew up. It wasn't actually like the intention was not to start another business. The intention was to sell the secrets to kind of move out of the gym space, because at that time I was way more scarcity mindset of an entrepreneur, and I was like, no one can know my secrets, like no one can know how we do it, and like the copy and like the flow and like the follow-up process and how we like And now there's a zillion people who try and knock off our stuff, and the
Yeah.
reason they can't copy what we do is because they don't have our skills.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So that's crazy, man. So like 2 years ago, you literally saw like that problem of like gym owners just doing so many different things wrong to where you're just like, man, I have the solution for this with the skill set and all that, and kind of just put like a program together for that.
Yeah.
You scaled it.
And try to make it as and what's interesting is like we've probably remade the original Gym Launch program 6 or 7 times.
Right.
So like we're always big on keeping it fresh and updated,
Right.
what's working right now and all that kind of stuff. But every time we make an update, we try and make it shorter, not longer. And I think that's one of the opposite things, like within like the information space. It's like people want to log in so they can cover their, like the info people will try and cover their asses by like, look at, there's over 100 hours of material,
yeah.
right? But if your goal is to get someone a result, then the goal should be how, like value, man, I could write this equation on the board, but basically value is the result times the likelihood that the prospect believes they're going to achieve it, right? So big result and big likelihood of achievement, that's a really big top number. And then you divide that by the time and sacrifice. So how long it's going to take them to get there and how many things they have to do in order to achieve it, right? And so if you're looking at weight loss, you could, like the reason liposuction, right? Big outcome, big certainty of achievement, effort is low, you just show up, and time-wise it happens once and it's immediate, right? And so why is that a $5,000, $10,000 surgery? It makes sense, right? Whereas if you're selling fitness, big outcome, likelihood of achievement, low, they already know, even when they're saying yes and buying, that they're not 100% certain, they're just kind of rolling the dice, being like maybe 40%, I believe I'll get there. Time-wise, it's going to take 12 weeks maybe to even start towards seeing my path of like what I really want my dream goal to be. And then effort and sacrifices, I wake up 4 a.m. every day, I can't eat the foods I want, I have to not, like I can't go out with my friends, I can't drink anymore, like all of these things. And so it's like, well, no wonder it takes an hour to sell someone into PT, right? You have to undo all this fact of like the lack of value. And I'm saying this whole value equation to just say that when you're making a product, the goal, you can make the product more valuable by shrinking the denominator, right? By shrinking the time and effort it takes to achieve the goal. So if I can get someone to achieve a goal faster and make it less effort, then the value of the total program goes up, right? Because the likelihood of achievement goes up.
Yeah.
And because they can only see. So if in 6 hours, so like our gym launch right now is 6 hours total.
Dang.
6 hours, right? Now, obviously in Legacy, we've got a zillion other things, and that's kind of the continuity upsell. Is like, cool, we helped you fill your gym. Now let me show you the rest of the of the map. But like this first win, which is like if you're for those keeping track at home, I modeled the gym model that we use, which we used to do define and front end programs, sell it at a high ticket so we can liquidate acquisition costs, and then sell the continuity that's cheaper than the front end program. And so the front end program costs more than the back end program. And the back end program has more stuff than the front end program does. And so there's multiple discrepancies of value where it's like, I'm gonna get more and it's gonna be less than what I just did, and I just love the thing, so why would I say no?
Yeah.
And so that's exactly how we did it at the gyms. It's like, I just got you an amazing result in a short period of time, you paid a lot for it, and you're gonna get more than you just did for less money.
Yeah.
You wanna stay? Everyone's like, sure. And that's kind of the process. So like, whether it's a gym, whether it's a coaching business, it just like, the frameworks work.
Yeah. I love that value equation too, man. Thanks for sharing that.
Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. If you are interested in being a wealthy fitness professional and creating more impact, influence, income, and independence, make sure to grab our new book, Rise of the Fit Pros. I'm gonna link that up in the description box below. Also, if you like this YouTube channel and you like the videos and the content on here, we upload them every single week to help you become a better and wealthy fitness professional. So make sure to subscribe above, and I'll talk to you soon.
Before we hit the record button, we were talking about kind of like competition and just how the fitness industry is, and people are sour and stuff like that. So how do you specifically, just stay away from all the noise and the competition?
Mentor really early on told me success is the only revenge. And so that's kind of from like the darker place of my soul, is that like all the people who speak out against you, like one of you will be right. And it's just like, it should be you. If you like at the end of the day, like there's no point in debating it. It's just like either you're right or they are. And so like, as many people will talk ill about Gym Launch who've never met us or never even consumed the product or don't even own a gym, like whatever. And so at the end of the day, like if we have a business that's valued at $200 million and they are making $500,000 a year, then I'll let the discerning individual make the judgment on who they should listen to for business advice. And while they're talking about me, I'm talking to my customers. And so we make it a very big point to just like never focus on any of that. And so like my team knows if anyone posts anything negative, like from the outside. If it's a customer, then I want to know if it's something that's recurring. But if it's outside, then like they don't affect us. Like they don't affect us at all. And the fact that they're spending their time poking on us is just a testament to the fact that they're not focusing on what they should be focusing on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then you mentioned earlier too when we were talking that you're like very private. You don't like to like post like a lot of stuff, just like personal stuff, like the life of Alex.
6 Lambos.
Right. Oh, God. So yeah, I mean, what is like the reason for that? I mean, and it's nothing wrong with it because I mean we're pretty private guys too, but I like that whole concept of know, like, trust, right? Where we live like in that interactive world where you're buying people, you're buying the trust. So you said you're trying to work on that.
Yeah, it's a huge deficit of mine, and I think that's because I had such strong beliefs going into probably the last few years, and I mean these are my deficiencies that I'm working on. Is that I saw so many people who were just fronting, you know what I mean, just showing that, and I was so like disgusted with that. And I like honestly, when Layla and I started this business, I was like, I do not want to be a guru business, and like in trying to not be a guru business, we became the biggest guru business that I'm aware of in the gym space by a mile. And so I think sometimes it's like when you're trying not to do something, you end up doing it. But I think maybe it's like a fraud thing of like, it just never felt good to me. And I always knew that like being rich and being famous are two very different things. And I saw all these people that I looked up to, Reid Hoffman, who's a founder of LinkedIn, founder of Greylock, he has like 6,000 followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, he's richer than all these Instagram influencers, and why is he not posting the stuff? It's like, because that's not how he makes money.
Right.
And so I think a lot of people think that the attention is necessary for monetization, and it's backwards. They seek influence to gain money, when in fact, and so many of them get the influence and don't have the skills to actually monetize their influence or their attention. And so all of my energy has gone to acquiring the skills to best provide value and monetize the value that we provide. But I think now it's more of a personal thing that I feel like I think there's value that we can provide to the marketplace just in the terms of free stuff, just content, not to sell more stuff. This will be a personal thing for me. We'll just be like, and I think part of it is more like documenting so that maybe 10 years from now, I can be like, that's what I was thinking at that time. Like that's where my headspace was. You know what I mean? We have a private group that I make videos in twice a week. But of course it's a private group and you have to like be invited in. And, great distribution on my part. But yeah, it was that big thing, which was like all these guys pretend like they're making money, and then when they reach out to talk to me about like they'll posture against me, and we make 50 times as much as they do. Yeah. Like 50, like 100 times more than they do. And so then I was just like, why do I care? Like, what's the point, right? Like, what's like, well, you gotta get your brain out. Like, why? Well, because you got all those eyeballs. You're like, why? Yeah. Like, and eventually it's like, well, because you're trying to make money. You're like, cool, I'm just making money. So what's the point, right? And so, right, and that was always kind of the thought process. But I think long term, like, know, liking, and trust. Because like I think that I've always let all my clients do the talking to increase the liking, the trust. So if you saw all of our ads, it's just like almost all of them like, don't listen to me. Like everyone's trying to sell you stuff. So like, the promise that I will make is no different than everyone else. It's just my ability to fulfill on it is absolute. Yeah. Right? It's like everyone says, I'll help you fill your gym, I'll help you get more customers, I'll help you make more money, work less. Like the promise is the same. It's just how much conviction do you have that I can help you do it? Don't trust me. Trust the 1,000 people that I have behind me with signs saying that like we can do it. Yeah. And so that's kind of like I can use other people to get that kind of know, like, and trust from a selling perspective. Yeah. Gotcha. Got it.
So Alex, I want to know like what makes you tick in business? What brings out that fire, like that killer instinct? I always like using that analogy of Michael Jordan, right? Like through 3 quarters, I mean, the guy was super good, but we know as soon as 4th quarter hit, man, he was a killer. Killer instinct came out. What brings out that killer instinct in you?
I would say for the first like 6 years, maybe 5 years of my like business career, it was insecurity and fear of failure, like not wanting to have all these people who were rooting against me be right, not like I think there's definitely some like pathology that I have to deal with, but it's like things in my own head of like literally imagining other people talking shit about me, about how I was making the wrong decision, about how I was throwing it all away, how I was never going to be good enough. And so like I have friends who are like, you realize that like no one's saying that, but like I would just like feed into that to just like drive me. I would say in the last couple years, maybe year-ish, I don't think I have as much to prove to anyone else anymore. And now I feel like it's shifted to much more like proving it to myself.
Yeah.
And so I think that's healthier, which is nice. It took a long time. I'm not saying I'm totally out of the woods, but proving to myself, because like I think, like just like you guys, like I'm sure you're like, I know we can do more than what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And so it's like there's this huge deficiency, there's this huge vacuum between where I am and where I think I should be. And so that's what just like pulls you towards that, like I have to do better. Like we have to do better. And Layla says it well when she's talking about it. She's like, I would be incredibly regretful ending my life not meeting the version of myself that could, create $1 billion enterprise, or maybe by that point a $10 billion enterprise, or whatever it is. I would regret it. I'd kick myself for the rest of my life. Or thinking back, I just don't want to end my life that way. So kind of like John Wooden's thing is like knowing that you've put your absolute like true best, not like I tried my best. It's like, did you actually try your best? I hear it all the time. Where you're like, I'm trying my hardest. Like, really? Your hardest.
Yeah.
Like your absolute hard. Like we were talking about an event that happened earlier,
Right.
and you're like, if you have something that happens, like figure it out. Like how hard did you try? Layla tells a story about Phil Knight from Shoe Dog, where he couldn't make payroll because the bank that was lending him money for his payroll, because it's physical products, so you always have to buy more in advance. So credit line's really important, and they just said, we're not going to give you credit anymore. He's like, I have to pay payroll tomorrow. Like I need this money, or like, and so all of the checks bounced from payroll. And that would normally people would be like, well, that's it, like sorry. And so what he did is he went to one of the company that sold him the boxes for the shoes, and he said, hey man, I'm your biggest buyer. I'm 70% of your business. And if I go down, you're going to go down. And so I need you to pay my payroll. And so the box company paid his payroll so that and then he got another, bank loan, and he was able to turn it around. Yeah. But like, what entrepreneur would give up at that point, versus the ones who like will do no matter, like will win, you know what I mean? And so one of the things we have is like winners win. And so that's just what you made up.
Yeah, that's a good story.
Yeah, love that. So let's stay on that too. So what are you willing to sacrifice for a cause? So I mean, I like using an analogy of like a pro boxer, right? So they get the shit beaten out of them. It's like they could get hit in the head, they could die. I mean, long-term effects. So like what are you willing to sacrifice for a cause?
One of my number one like top 5 podcasts is called Trade-Offs.
Okay.
And so the answer to that question is just about everything.
Okay.
Just being real, like just about everything, short of morals. Layla and I haven't gone on a vacation since we started the business. Our ability to execute is going to be the competitive advantage that we have, and being able to execute the right strategy. So if we can do it faster and we have the right strategy, then we'll win. And so that's really kind of like, I remember when I had my gyms early on, I was a single guy, had no kids, had no girlfriend, no nothing. And I just remember seeing what I believed at the time to be the gym down the street, which I thought would be affecting me, which it doesn't. But I would see them posting about like just them out with the kids at the soccer game. I was like, every moment you enjoy with your family, I'm getting ahead of you. And I would I relished in that. Like I really dug into that. And so I don't know if all of that is out of me right now, because definitely there are roots of that are still there. But like if we're not working, I feel weird. Like I feel anxiety about the fact that like I could be doing more, and I need to keep going. Because
so how do you deal with that? Because I know that exact feel, man, where it's like, my fiance too, like she just tells me chill out, like you already put a good day's of work in or something. I can't chill out. Like I'm always thinking like, dude, like I need to do something else. I could be doing something else, like to build the business or something else.
And to mention, he's always bitching to me.
It's like yin and yang. Like I'm the one like, let's go, and he chills a little bit, but still, like, how do you deal with that though?
Yeah. How do I deal with it? I don't. So like Layla and I've had a lot of candid conversations about the relationship, and one of the biggest things that she says when she's giving other people marriage advice, not that we're super experienced like in the long term, but I think we have a decent relationship given how extreme we both are. She's like, I never tried to change Alex. I knew that this is what I was going to be getting into when I married him, so like this is who I And a lot of times, champions, so Dr. Kashi, who is my training partner, trained 6 different countries' Olympic teams. He did all of their nutrition. You guys should totally interview him for nutrition.
Yeah, I remember you were mentioning him at Mike's.
Yeah. He's brilliant. He's the smartest person I know in nutrition, like bar none. He's genius. Got his master's in chemistry at 17, like very smart. Anyways, got his PhD, youngest in the United States at 22. Very smart. Anyways, but he's like, everyone always asks, what do those people have? Like, what do those champions have that I don't? And he's like, and it's the wrong question. It's what do I have that they do not? He's like, what champions have is they don't have an off button. Mm-hmm. It's not that they have a further on. It's just that they don't know how to stop. He's like, and that's what makes champions. And so he's like, champions are mentally ill. Like if you listen to Michael Jordan talk about competition, he doesn't sound mentally healthy. If you listen to Kobe Bryant talk about how he worked to win, it doesn't come from a nice place. You know what I mean? It comes from like a much darker place, in my opinion. And so I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? This is who I am. You know what I mean? And I'm okay sacrificing a lot of my own life to see other people be able to live their freedom. Yeah. And I think that a lot of times, like a lot of us, like I'm not saying anything about your friends, but like a lot of married couples, whatever, will project what they believe the ideal outcome of success to be onto their entrepreneurial counterpart, when the entrepreneur's ideal expression of freedom is choice. Freedom doesn't mean I watch Netflix all day. It doesn't mean I go to the beach for 2 straight weeks, because I would go nuts. I'm sure you would too, right? And so that is not what I want. What I want is to do what I want to do, and this is what I want to do. So I'm purely exercising my choice to do me. And so I think if you redefine it that way, then you're actively achieving the freedom that you're seeking.
Yeah. And there's gosh, that was good. That was good. Really good.
So I would say to put some water on the top.
And that brings me to like another topic too. I read this on your Instagram a while back. So you do post, man. So you said
once every 2 weeks.
You said something about just like how entrepreneurs need to buy into more of the longer game strategy and playing the game of just like how long can you play this game for, right?
Yeah.
So and I was like, holy man, I was like, that's so spot on. So why is that so important for an entrepreneur to buy into that?
So this is like, this gets into game theory. I don't know if you guys are familiar with game theory, finite and infinite games. No. So this is really good from a fitness standpoint and from a business standpoint. So finite games, just the brief overview for anyone who's listening, is that finite games have known players. So there's 2 teams, right? They're known. There's agreed upon rules and an agreed upon outcome. Like you have to, like, these are the rules of the game, these are the players, and the outcome is you have to score, and the person who wins is the one at the end of the time period who has the most points, right? All those things are agreed upon. In an infinite game, there are known and unknown players, there are no agreed upon rules, and the objective is to keep the game going. Totally different game. So an example of that would be when you have people playing a finite game and an infinite game. It's like when the US went to invade Vietnam, right? And this is, mind you, like, Simon Sinek has a great video on this if anyone wants to check it out. And so when the US went to Vietnam to try and win, they were trying to play a finite game, trying to win, right? Vietnam was trying to keep the game going. They were trying to survive. There was no winning. The point was to survive. And so an infinite player will always beat a finite player because the point of the game is to keep the game going. And so within the context of fitness, people try and put finite rules and try to play a finite game of like, I want to get to this competition, I want to get this leanness, right? But then when I said at the very beginning, like, what is the objective that we could have or change in the fitness industry, is to have really an infinite perspective on habits, right? Because if we can have people have an infinite view, which is like the point of fitness is to continue to stay fit. That is the point. And so then you make the objective, the infinite objective, which is the point, is to keep the game going, is to stay in the game. Which is why entrepreneurs, if you are thinking, like for me, one of the biggest like de-stressors is that if I do not quit, I cannot lose. Which is like really real for me. So like if I do not quit, which is 100% of my control, I do not lose. Absolutely. I can't. It's impossible. Because as long as you're still in the game is still going and you're still playing the game. And so if you take the infinite perspective in terms of looking at a business, then the point is to stay in business. And it doesn't mean you even have to be in the same business. And I'll give you a funny example of this. When I started out I was really like chip on my shoulder, wanting something to prove, and I wanted to like take people out, right? These are quotes here. And I saw somebody who was kind of a more established player kind of like stop doing this, this stuff, and we got a bunch of their customers and all that stuff. And I thought to myself, man, I'm a badass, right? I'm so great. And then that person, I thought more about it and I saw what they were doing, and they moved on to a business that made them even more money. And then I was like, did I win?
Yeah.
Did I lose? It's because I was trying to approach it with a finite perspective instead of an infinite perspective. And one of the fun things about the infinite perspective is that when someone's like, I beat this business, right? You'd say, out what? There's no agreed upon outcomes.
Right.
Is it revenue? Is it growth? Is it profit per client? Is it profit per employee? Is it lifestyle? Is it hours worked per week? Like what's the thing? Because there is no thing. The point is to keep the game going. And if you realize that there are no ways to win, the only way to win is to keep playing, then it massively shifts your perspective on terms of how you make decisions about your business, and then also how you view your marketplace, like the competitors, etc.
Yeah.
Man. Finite and infinite. Okay.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. It's good.
I'll have to listen to this again.
Yeah. But it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it does.
It really does. And I mean, to me, that's more of like, it's even almost like more of like having that growth mindset as an entrepreneur, just like, just understanding like really what it's all about. Like it's a long game. You're playing the long game. It's not a short game. There's no, elevator to success. There's no payout day where it's just like, oh, I'm done. But if that's really the kind of mindset you have, then it's like, you're not going to last.
Just a fun way of framing it for anyone who's listening is like, you are the game.
Yeah.
And so this is like a paraphrase of a proverb, but like your work works on you more than you work on it.
Absolutely.
And so like if you have the infinite perspective, then like you are the outcome.
Yeah.
Not the outcome.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
you are the outcome of the game that you're playing.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
true. So I want to go back to like what we were talking about, just kind of like the anxiety thing, and
Yeah.
just like that. Like, what does a day in the life of Alex Hormozi look like? So literally from like, what time do you wake up?
Yeah.
What's your morning routine if you do anything like that?
Yeah.
Midday, how do you shut it off?
Yeah. Don't shut it off. When I find out, I'll let you know. So it's really interesting because Layla and I have massively different ways of really doing everything. And so I'm like really against like, this is the way like all successful billionaires wake up at blah. Like I have a couple billionaire friends who do all their work between like 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. Like it's, I think there's a few things that I tend to see in general. And so like for me, most of the tasks that I have are big projects. And so I don't really do more than like one thing per day, like if that. And they're like big things. And usually my role is all based around communication. And so that's either communicating a concept to our team, it's communicating a concept to our clients, or it's communicating a concept to the public, which is ultimately influence and selling. And so my ability to influence, we try and amplify that as we continue to grow, is like how can I influence and how can I break beliefs for my team just as much as the outside market.
Right.
So that is what like the entirety of my role is within the company. And so I oversee the parts of the company that do the influencing, which is sales and marketing, and I oversee product because we're teaching other people how to do those same things. Mm-hmm. And so my day usually starts really early. If I'm doing a big work day, which probably only happens like 3 days a week, what I call like Hercules days, where I'll usually wake up at like 3:30ish, and then I work from like 4 until 6, and so I'll get like 14 good hours of like great cranking done, and that's just how I tend to work. Mm-hmm. Layla, on the other hand, like does tons of meetings, tons of one-on-one. She's running the majority of the team. She has 7 direct reports. I have 2 or 3. Like she really runs the majority of the company. A lot of her tasks or a lot of her things are task oriented, so she can check off, and they're very different types of tasks, but they're things that can be resolved quickly. Most of my tasks are creative in nature, and so engineering the creative process for me so I can consistently create a creative process has been one of the things that I've just spent time working on. And for me, I just know it has to be long blocks of time that are uninterrupted with anything. So like if I have like 2 meetings that are 30 minutes, like I'll just cancel them. Mm-hmm. Like I just need to have a huge block of time that I know that I can just kind of lose myself in the work that I'm doing.
Right.
So that's the majority of my work is going to be ad copy, sales scripts, things like that for our customers in our business, and then also like coaching and communicating that as training.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then how do you wind down like towards the end of the day? Like kind of just shut it off?
I mean, we eat all of our meals together, and so that's probably like a nice check-in in the middle of the day.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say our breakfast and our lunch are more like transactional. It's more like, what are you doing? What's up? What's going on? More pulse check. And then at dinner, we try not to have our phones. So that's like,
good.
you know, we try not to. So most of the time, and we don't. So I'd say one thing that we've done well, like we gave up a long time ago trying to like don't talk about business, because like, what'd you do today? Right. Like we both work in the business. Like, what are you thinking about? Right. And so instead, what we do is we just don't talk about problems. And so after dinner, it's like we just talk about opportunities and things that are just interesting and fun, rather than like, what are we going to do about so and so? They're not performing. They're not meeting their KPIs. Like, are we going to let them go? They're like, that's just like crap. You know what I mean? Like we all have to deal with it, but we just don't have to talk to it about it like in the hour and a half before we go to bed.
Right. Yeah.
And so for us, we eat dinner. We'll typically watch some sort of sci-fi, fantasy, something that just totally gets us out of like the world that we're in. And we just hang out for that 60 to 90 minutes, which usually one of us will fall asleep before the end of that. And then we call it, and we're usually in bed by 8:30 or 9.
Gotcha.
Nice.
Like we're usually asleep by 9.
Yeah.
So that's how we can wake up at 4 and get 7 hours of sleep.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So what's next for Alex Hormozi?
Well, for us, we're launching our meal prep company in the next 4 weeks, which will be exciting. So all of our gyms will be like, you guys saw the presentation I had at Mike's. So the meals is kind of the second half of that. So now every gym that works with us for nothing, for $0, can have their own supplement line and food line that they can sell out of their facility without having to hold any inventory. So they can just help monetize their own customers and multiple revenue streams and have no inventory to take a hold of, and there's no like MLM downline. It's just like you get 100% what the margin was going to be, and it's for you, and we just make our money on the fact that we just have tremendous amounts of volume, and so we make our money on the margin. And so that's what's coming kind of like immediate. And then we're in the middle of our software rollout for lead nurture, which is probably the biggest pain point. After having done this for a while, you can get someone leads, but if they don't work the leads, it doesn't matter, right? And so we've spent millions of dollars and just thousands of man hours, so many hours going through conversations and messenger, threads, and just everything that we do to maximize the percentage of people that schedule and the percentage of people that show, and automating that process so that a gym owner basically needs to post ads and people walk in the door. And so that's the next thing that's rolling out for us, and that's really that's the next kind of big thing that I'm working on.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Awesome.
And before we ask the last question, I just want to acknowledge you and Layla. Like, thank you guys so much for having us, man. Like, truly, this is awesome. Beautiful home. Like, you guys are, excuse my language, rock stars. And you guys are people that we want to get to that level eventually. But thank you guys so much for everything you guys have done. Like, your book really inspired me too. And I got you a bracelet that said leader, and I picked leader because when I heard you speak on stage at Mike's, I was like, dude, this guy is a badass. I don't even know who he is, but he's a leader. And then when I read your book, I was like, dude, that's a mic drop. Like, he's a leader, So honestly, thank you so much, Alex. Really appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it. It's nice of you. Thank you.
So last question, what does it mean to Alex Hormozi to live a dynamic lifestyle?
I think it's having no tolerance. And what I mean by that is not tolerating your own excuses for why things can't happen, for tolerating people around you that don't support you, for tolerating ideas that don't feed you, for tolerating hate that doesn't in any way help you. Because I think the reason that people will follow, to piggyback on what you were saying, is that like Steve Jobs just had the lowest tolerance out of everyone in the room. Was that like, he's like, I won't tolerate if this is not this size and does this, this, and this. And when people just kept saying it's not possible, he was just like, I won't tolerate that. That's not acceptable. And so, I mean, there's obviously a fine line between being completely insane and being brilliant, and the only difference is that one of them's right. So it can be a fine line. But I think if you're approaching your business and you're approaching your marriage of like what's possible and what's not possible, not to be overly trite or something that everyone says, but like the higher up we go in the game, the more we realize the game is just between your ears. It's just like, it's truly just breaking beliefs over and over again of what the more you do, the more you believe you can do. And so then it just builds this positive wheel. And so I think people would be more confident if they kept their small promises to themselves and let it build. First you keep them to yourself, then you keep them to other people, then you keep them to communities, then you keep it to the world, And so for me, the dynamic lifestyle is just not tolerating not getting what you want.
Yeah, I like that. That's the first time I've heard that. I like that.
Yeah.
It's unique.
Exactly.
So, where can our listeners like just learn more about you, everything you're doing, and then is there anything that we can support you on currently right now?
Well, if they're podcasters, then they can go to alexspodcast.com.
Okay.
That's my only content. alexspodcast.com, and then you guys read the book, so alexsbook.com. You can grab a copy. It's like $9.
Yeah.
So you can
Well
just grab
worth
it
it.
there.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll have all that linked up in the show notes. Once again, Alex, thank you so much for having
Thank
us.
you, guys. Appreciate you.
It's awesome. All right, guys. Until next time.
Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. If you are interested in being a wealthy fitness professional and creating more impact, influence, income, and independence, make sure to grab our new book, Rise of the Fit Pros. I'm gonna link that up in the description box below. Also, if you like this YouTube channel and you like the videos and the content on here, we upload them every single week to help you become a better and wealthy fitness professional. So make sure to subscribe above, and I'll talk to you soon.